All right. So when you get home, and hopefully, in most of these cases, people don't spend a lot of time in the hospital. Most of the times they get checked out at the ER, and then they go home. But when you get home, whether you are at fault or whether the other person is at fault, one of the things you need to make sure you do is notify your own insurance company that you were involved in an accident. And that's to protect you, because whether you're at fault or whether you're not at fault, there's going to be some money obligations, and you pay for insurance so that that insurance policy can be used. Now, a lot of these most insurance policies have a clause in there that requires you to reasonably notify them, or to notify them within a reasonable amount of time that you were involved in an accident. If you do not do so, then you could be denied coverage under your own policy. The other thing they're going to do is they're going to start their own investigation. So they're going to try to determine on their own who was at fault in this case, so that they can go ahead and make a decision about liability. The other thing you want to do is get a copy of your own insurance policy. You need to be familiar with what your coverages are. You need to know, am I covered, or what is my underinsurance policy, or what is my liability or my collision policy. You need to be familiar with what your coverages are at the time of the accident, so that you know moving forward what you need to be doing. Take any pictures of any injuries and write down notes. Some of these cases, you're not going to be, you may never testify, but if you have to testify in a deposition, or you have to testify 2 years later in front of a judge or a jury, you may not remember exactly how you were feeling, or exactly what happened, or what you recall that was most important about the accident at the time it occurred. So it's important to make sure that you keep your own record, because you may be asked about that, months or years down the road. And then keep track of missed time at work is one of the things that you can recover for in these cases, or lost wages. So if you're out of work for a period of time, you're going to want to make sure that you can present documented evidence to the insurance company to recover for those lost wages. And then finally, contact an attorney. I would tell you to contact an attorney anytime you've been involved in an accident. Almost every attorney that does any types of personal injury work is going to give you a free consultation with respect to the case. It doesn't mean by contacting an attorney that you're hiring an attorney. It doesn't mean that you're paying an attorney, but they're going to give you simple advice typically in that consultation that will allow you to make some smart decisions about how you need to move forward with a liability or a bodily injury claim. And I would tell you, if you're the at fault party with respect to the accident, your insurance company will hire an attorney for you. So if you're the person at fault, you don't need to necessarily go out and hire an attorney to seek advice. Contact your insurance company if they feel the need, or feel like you're going to need representation as part of your policy and as part of your coverage. They're going to hire an attorney to represent you in any sort of claim.
And this is just going to kind of continue on for the months following your accident. Again, you just want to continue following the advice of your medical providers. They're going to obviously tell you if you need to continue treatment, or if you need to go and treat with a specialist somewhere. Listen to what they say, and this is again somebody that you trust, or you should be trusting, and you want to just listen to what they have to tell you, and listen to or just follow their medical advice. If you're hurting, make sure you call your doctor. The next one is going to say, don't ask your attorney for medical advice. Don't call your attorney either if you're hurting. We are not medical professionals, and we do not ever give advice to clients as to how they should go forward with their treatment. We leave that entirely in their doctor's hands, and that is the best advice I can give you is call your doctor, not your lawyer. The next thing is, if it's not in your medical records, the insurance company is going to assume that it didn't happen. lot of things that are certain things this is going to apply to. Say, for instance, any type of mental disorder. So if somebody is in an accident, they're suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. They can tell us all day long that they're having these issues. They're having nightmares. They're having anxiety from the accident. They're having all these different feelings from the accident. But if it's not documented in your medical records, it's no different than me telling the doctor that you suffered a broken arm when I don't have medical evidence to back it up. So it's really important that anytime that you have something that you want to speak with your doctor about, you make sure they get it in writing. Continue taking pictures and writing down notes. We can't stress enough how important pictures are. And the purpose of continuing to take pictures throughout the time that you're involved in an accident is to see your progression. We want to see, where you were from the beginning and how you're doing now. And it just kind of keeps a good, it will allow us to just sort of see how your healing has evolved. And ultimately at the end, if you don't get back to the way that you were before the accident, then you potentially may have scarring, or you may have other issues that weren't necessarily there prior to the accident. So it's all stuff that can be very impactful on your case, and it's much easier to make an argument with the picture versus just simply telling them or relying on the medical records. And finally, the most important thing is focus on getting better. When you hire an attorney in a case, what that does is it prevents the insurance company from speaking to you at that point. So at that point, all their conversations have to go through the attorney, and by law, they're not allowed to have any further conversation with you. And the good thing about that is it allows you to just simply focus on getting better. And that's what's most important. We want to see every client hopefully get back to where they were prior to the accident. Now, it certainly doesn't happen in every case, but in most cases, the majority of clients will get back to where they were prior to the accident. And the other thing is it just allows us at the end, when you are finished with your treatment, to make a determination of whether or not you have any type of permanent injuries. So if you don't get back to where you were before the accident, then it's possible you may have permanent injuries. And again, that's going to factor in to the overall value of your case, and it can become a really important factor in the value.
All right, so once you have finished treatment, certainly you need to communicate with your attorney if you have one, or if you don't have one, you want to wait till you have finished treatment as well. You do not want to settle your case too soon. And the reason that is because once that case is settled, or once they issue you a check, and they will only issue you the check once the case is closed. But once the case is settled, if there's an issue that arises later, you're not going to be able to go back and recover for any of those damages. So in other words, the insurance company may call you a week after the accident and say, look, we're going to offer you this amount of money, and then we're going to pay your medical bills up until this, 2 months after the accident. Well, if you accept that offer and you sign a release, but you haven't finished treating in 2 months, or you have to have a surgery following that, you're not going to be able to go back to that insurance company and say, hey, I'm still having issues. I want you to pay for this because this accident was not my fault. They're going to tell you this case is over, this claim is closed, and if you go talk to an attorney after the fact, they're going to tell you the same thing. You're not going to be able to go to court and argue that you should recover because you're going to be barred because you have agreed and signed a release in the case. The other thing is be realistic about your expectations. Not every case, in fact, almost every case is not worth $1 million. You've heard all the urban legends and all the talk over the years about how much you should get if you were in an auto accident. I would tell you to ignore every single bit of that. Cases are evaluated based on the seriousness of your injuries, whether you have lost wages, mental and physical health as far as your damages go there. They're also evaluated based on where you live and based on what you can expect a jury, how a jury would evaluate your case if presented to them. So a jury may, while you, and this is frequent, if you've been in an accident and it's not your fault, you're going to be upset and you're going to think the case typically is worth more than what the insurance company is going to offer you. But understand that your attorney and the insurance company are going to evaluate the case based on what they would anticipate a jury. And if you're in Surry County, what they would anticipate a jury in Surry County returning a verdict for. And Surry County traditionally does not return substantial verdicts. And so you need to get that advice from your attorneys, not your friends. Your friends are often going to think your case is worth a lot more, but you've got to know what can actually be presented in court and what is actually part of that personal injury claim or that bodily injury claim. Not everything that upsets you or you feel like is a result of this accident is something that can legally be considered. So you have to be realistic about your expectations, but your main expectation should be that if you're in an accident, your medical bills and some damages with respect to pain and suffering and lost wages should be paid for by the other party, and you should be taken care of by them. But there's certainly a lot of things that go in to that to make sure that they're paying what they should pay, and that you're not overpaying medical bills when you are actually covered by your own health insurance. And then be patient. These cases take some time to resolve, particularly if you were seriously injured and have serious health complications, because attorneys don't want to resolve these before you have finished treating or before they have a good idea of what your actual damages are going to be. Because when we make that argument to the insurance company or when we make that argument over in court, we want to be able to tell them to a pretty substantial degree of certainty that these are the long-term implications for you because you were involved in this accident. So they can take some time. I would just tell you to be as patient as possible with respect to getting the case resolved.
And that's going to lead right into just some general information we have about personal injury cases. The statute of limitations in North Carolina is going to be 3 years on either a property damage claim or a personal or a liability damage claim. And what that means is that you have 3 years from the date of the accident in order to get your case resolved or to file a lawsuit. If you don't file it within that time period or don't get it resolved in that time period, then you potentially are going to be barred from recovering anything. So it's important to make sure that you're aware of that time frame, or else you may be out of luck altogether. And we see it frequently where people they treat for a while and they simply don't know a lot about what's going on. They haven't spoken to an attorney, and they don't realize that there is a time limit on when they can resolve their case. And they'll call us, 3.5 years after their accident, and we simply have to tell them, you missed your opportunity to get the case resolved. And whenever we're handling a case, we always try to be very careful with the statute of limitations, meaning that typically when it gets about 6 months away from the statute of limitations, we'll go ahead and talk with our client about preparing the lawsuit to get it filed, because we don't want to take any chances. There's a lot of different reasons why a case can be dismissed, and we want to make sure that in the event that there's some type of technical or anything like that, we have to refile the case before that statute of limitations does run. Now, the next thing is that in any type of motor vehicle accident, you're always going to have two claims. You're going to have a liability claim and a property damage claim. And the property damage claim is going to simply involve your vehicle or your bicycle or any other items that you might have had in that vehicle that get destroyed as a result of the accident. So if you have let's say you go out and buy a brand new iPhone, get into an accident, and that phone gets destroyed. You're entitled to recover for the purchase of that phone, but you've got to have documentation, and it's got to be destroyed as part of the other person's negligence. Your liability claim is going to be everything else other than the property damage. So it's going to be your pain and suffering. It's going to be your lost wages. It's going to be your medical bills. And these two types of claims can be settled at different times.